Hello, everybody. Welcome to this panel discussion today. I'm Anup Nambiar. I'm a partner with Deloitte. I carry over 25 years of experience across data and cloud space. And right now, my role is the cloud transformation and engineering leader for Deloitte. With this, I would like to invite my panel to introduce themselves. Mr. Sunil Soni.
I'm Sunil Soni, the CIO of Punjab National Bank, and have been there in the bank in various different facets for almost about 34 years now, of which about 27 years is in technology. Though I have been in and out, in the field, that is the hardcore banking, besides the technology. And in technology also, various different facets. Being the CISO of the organization, has been into deployments, and today, sitting as CIO.
So just set the context. Cloud is the new normal. Okay, I know that's an understatement anymore because it's not a new normal anymore. That's the normal rate. That's a table stake anymore. And pandemic has really proven that that is a kind of a technology or the infra or a backbone or an enabler every organization need to survive in the current world. A lot of the folks who were not comfortable moving to cloud actually were convinced with some of the business cases came out of the pandemic and so on. But regardless, it was always the pillar for business transformation. So I'll start with a few questions. First of all, just to get to know more about your own cloud journeys. My first one would be, what is your approach to cloud adoption, and where do you consider yourself in that maturity curve? Are you in the levels I explained? Whether are you aware? Whether are you already using it, or are you actually in the midst of that? So that's what I would like to start with, Mr. Soni.
Yes, I think the cloud, as you rightly said, it's the current buzzword in the IT setup. Primarily, the journeys are different as per the maturity of various different organizations, as per the various different business needs. So to say, if I would like to take the adoption by the bank and the banking industry per se, the journey has been contested between two things. One is data privacy. Second is being the custodian of the public information, whether I, as an organization, would get comfort, in parting with the data to a location which is offsite, was a big challenge. So that's the basic contestation was for so many years, whether, and if so, what applications can actually go to cloud, which is public cloud, so to say. Having arrived at that maturity now, it has taken the banking industry, say, almost about 10 years to discuss on issues, identify whether cloud would make sense. Now, essentially, looking into the utilization, the digital journeys, and also looking into the speeding up, which has been done by the pandemic. It has actually resulted into the buying out of the idea that cloud is something which is here to stay. One. Second aspect is from a perspective of which type of cloud, again, would determine what kind of applications, because the banking applications are a little critical in nature. By no means I would want to say that others are not, the other industries are not. However, banking is a peculiar, fiduciary game where we need to be looking into quite a lot of other compliances set by various different regulators. So looking into that, essentially the major issue so far has been whether we should look into parting with the data. The solution to that, which has now been brought about, is to see that let's build a public cloud or the private cloud. And while we're looking at a private cloud, the example is that hiving it off or hiving out the applications, as to put it straight, we are at the adoption stage as of today. And having created the infrastructure for the private cloud, today we are hiving out our applications, which are critical in nature and would require speeding up or scaling up of the infrastructure on the fly for the digital journeys is what the majority that we are at this point of time. However, looking at the public cloud, the other non-critical applications have been, parted out with the public cloud as well. So it's a journey which is a mix of both, and depending on the kind of comfort and the adoption now, which has been speeded up by the pandemic, and the use cases which finds a lot of value to the C-suite now, is the basic maturity where we are as an organization.
Do you feel your organization is still in that infra and cost savings mode, or is it more of a transformation enabler mode yet?
No, that was then, while you're talking with regard to the cost savings and others. Today, it is the platform for the digital journeys now. Because the changes that you require are kind of, pretty fast. In case if you don't match the mark-to-market kind of a scenario, and in case if you delay, placing your business propositions in the market as per the customer needs, you lose the bus. So essentially, it is the enabler for you to immediately go for a change, upscale yourself, to create different business models. So agility is the mantra here rather than the cost saving anymore.
Yep.
And maybe looking at the customer expectations, that's the next, the best thing that I could say here. A gel of these two would determine the adoption.
So what has been your experience on multi-cloud so far? And let me set a little context to that question also, because we moved from deciding to go to cloud or not, and now we are actually talking about how do I leverage the various capabilities across private and public cloud vendors, and how do we leverage them and create an ecosystem of or an architecture which kind of addresses our digital transformation needs. Mr. Soni?
Every organization would have its own challenges to fend and face, and also the business use cases which are required to be handled. So while we are looking at a hybrid model to a cloud and a multi-cloud setup, now looking at multi-cloud, in case if you have different technologies to be deployed, it makes sense. But in case you are looking at the same technology to be deployed elsewhere, you would require more security controls to be deployed at various different clouds at different levels because of the compliances and other things. So essentially, agreeing to the fact that the faceless or the serverless technology would be, or the multi-cloud is going to be the mantra. However, at this point of time, looking at multi-cloud for specific applications, as per the dependency, would be the mantra here.
Are you already a multi-cloud landscape, or are you only using one vendor at this point?
No, I'm into a multi-cloud as of today.
Okay.
There was a little hiccup in the communication. However, I am presently on the multi-cloud and taking advantage of various different vendors and services for the organization.
Just a off question on the same one. How do you guys manage that today? Are you finding that a problem, that shortage of skills for you to enable your aspirational journey across multi-cloud?
Issue is with regard to having the skill or upskilling your existing manpower. In the private setup, it is easy to hire or fire a person in comparison to the PSUs. Typically, a specific issue where you're married for life, as it is, right? So, with having that kind of inputs, either the induction of new task force should go on and on perpetually, which may not be true, keeping in view the kind of the kind of landscape that we have, or the kind of people that we would have in our kitty, and the kind of buying or hiring new set of or new technology people is a big challenge. Second aspect is, while you're looking at managing with the existing stuff, upskilling is another issue which results into finding out a real good talent and upskilling them so that they now venture out into the newer pastures of the cloud and its connected issues with regard to deployments, with regard to maintenance, with regard to security, etc., etc. So looking into that today, in case if there is some service provider who can give me this assurance, some service provider who can give me this kind of a stack where the services can be assured at a minimum committed levels, that's the way to look at, especially with regard to the PSUs, in case we really want to grow progressively well in this.
Basically, having that flexible workforce available to you brings all the skills, so you don't have to worry about keep on building your skills and kind of maintaining them. No, makes sense. The question here is, in this, we all agree that cloud is not the new normal. Cloud is the current normal or present normal, and it's just going to stay for a while. So, what is your approach to compliance and security and governance around cloud in your respective roles? And Mr. Soni, I'd like to start with you, because for you, a PSU and a banking industry, That's very key to you.
That's where I started with. Essentially what happens is that in case if I have to actually put my information somewhere in cloud, I need to be doubly sure that the information, the CIA is maintained. Second aspect is while I'm looking at, the kind of compliances. So the audit becomes major most thing today in the mind of the regulator. And they are looking even at the possible extent of, even going ahead and doing an audit on their own in the given outsourced activity or in the given outsourced, cloud environment. Third thing is that with regard to the fact that we are into a fiduciary relationship with our clients, so which information, data privacy is another thing on the anvil. In case if that fructifies, that gives a different dimension to various different kind of activities and compliances. So these are few things, which I would want the cloud providers to consider before eventually we look at, adoption by a specific segment like the PSUs. So I think there a lot of activities, a lot of action is still required to be done. Though we say we are compliant, but the kind of compliances that are kind of required for different users may vary from organization to organization. So that is one adoption which needs to be worked at while service providers will have to provide this service.
Sure, and there are talks in the market now. The PDPL is coming in, and so there is always discussion in the market that we should have a cyber or a rule or a law written to kind of set those standards for cloud adoption and so on. And let's see how that's gonna come about in the coming years. So I mean, we're almost over our time here. Mr. Soni, would like to have any final thoughts on this?
You see, primarily, from a service provider's point of view, enabling would be a mantra. However, from a business perspective, it is the customer perspective that is the center point of this entire activity. So from a provider, that is from a financial provider point of view, from a bank's point of view, to me, modernizing the offering, which are frictionless, contactless, and which actually enables or facilitates the customer to do transactions or business, without the intervention of brick and mortar. This is the way, or this is the reason why probably the adoption of cloud is, taking precedence. So while we are looking at, this particular strategy and assessment, business analytics also comes to play, because unless the data is, thrashed out, meaningful information is, pointed out by that is put to use, would be the direction, which actually enables me to look at services being provided by the cloud. So it is not the cloud per se which takes the precedence. It is the customer center point or their needs or their requirements which takes the center point for me as a provider. However, cloud enables me to facilitate one, the journey, or maybe speed up my journey, and two, it also enables me to come out of the monolith that I have or the archaic applications that I would have. So to switch over, cloud gives me that kind of a facilitation.
Okay, so I think since we are over time here, this will be the end of the panel discussion. It was a very informative one. Thanks for sharing your thoughts and views. So end of the day, to just close out, like I said, cloud is not a new normal. Cloud is a current normal, and going to be the continuous engine for growth for everything. And as you might have already seen, cloud is it's not about always cloud. It's about how do you manage your cost, how do you manage innovation, how do you enable growth in your organization, how do you standardize, how do you bring in agility, and in overall, to like you said, Mr. Soni, yes, it's all about how do we enable our business in a customer-centric use case, because customer centricity and product innovation is the key for any success. So I think cloud being a catalyst for that is really where we're looking in the future. So with that, thank you all, and we would end this panel discussion.